tuning in with us. I am joined by our exhibiting participants for National Art Gallery of Namibia's Heritage Week 2021. Theme for this year is fashion, the ties that bind us together. So with me in the Pashuka area where they are exhibiting all the wheels that you've been seeing is work that they have created for this pop-up exhibition. And I'm joined by Miss Fallon, Miss Loini, Miss Laini, and Miss Betty. So yeah, I'm basically gonna put it out there. I would just like to hear from the ladies how you feel that you have, what does it mean for you? Fashion and the ties that bind us together, and how you think you've translated this into the exhibition that people are able to see.
Okay, thank you. When I was thinking about it, because I've been exploring with different traditions.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've picked up, when you really look at the authentic, as in go and learn from your grandparents,
Yes.
what is our indigenous knowledge, not
Yes.
what we follow now.
Yes.
There's a lot of symbolism. Whether you're working with the baskets or the jewelry, there's a lot of symbolism. And I think that is what is tying us together. And so for me, I've been exploring with the jewelry of the Awambo people.
Yeah.
And when you really go in detail, there was meaning and there were occasions for
Yes.
using those jewelry. You
Correct.
don't just use it anytime or
Yeah.
wear it anyhow. Now, when we talk about Oshiwambo culture, costume, we jump into Odelela.
Yeah.
And it's a trade cloth.
Yeah.
It doesn't represent who we are.
Yes.
So that's where I thought of going back to the jewelry pieces. And then I also now created a print from it.
So it's basically for you, it's the values that are instilled in the indigenous knowledge that resides within the objects that were used historically.
Yes.
Got it. Does anybody else have another interpretation?
Yeah, I think it's a good way of looking at it. And then I think one thing that is important as well is that using that cultural reference to kind of illustrate design or illustrate textiles,
Yes.
kind of just gives us some sort of representation, which is lacking.
Yes.
And so it's nice that people are starting to unpack some of these thoughts and ideas so that we can really develop patterns, textiles that truly represent culture and see how best that the rest of the world can recognize and be able to say, okay, Namibia is having some sort of textile, but this is what represents them.
Yeah.
Is it detail? Is it geometric patterns?
Yes.
Is it whimsical stuff? Is it playfulness? But we just want to get to that point where we have something that really says this is Namibian and we can actually be proud of it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I also think very much, your approach has been that you actually had to create the textile first, and then from the textile design the item, and then create that garment. So that's been the process basically for, I think, the two of you, also maybe Miss Laini. I would just like to know from you, like, what has informed your influence in your work?
I think for me, it's always been identity, because it also now just chimes into the work that I've put out using Hendrik Witboy on my prints and using patchwork and all that. We all grew up in some sort of lifestyles where you had to make do with what you have.
Correct.
And you have to create within what you have.
Yes.
So each and every found material, found objects really just defines what is influencing your design development.
Yeah.
And sustainability has been at the height of that as well, because then it's like you have to use up everything within your proximity and make sure that you've actually given it that value.
Yes.
So I don't know for other people how they look at it, but it's like we've always had this culture of being sustainable and practicing, and then passing that on to the next generation, and the next one, and the next one.
No, I always say that as well. Like, Namibians are known for creating stuff out of nothing, and it's basically going back to that essence of who we are as Namibians that you have kind of used in your practice right now. It's also, and the fact that you've chosen Hendrik Witboy, I mean, is that your culture?
know that I'm like a very funny story, a long funny story. But that is actually my daughter's culture, like chipping into her deep roots.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with her grandmother a few weeks ago, and she actually told me that her family started this group where they wanted to uncover, or rather wanted to share all the information of their ancestors, and so they put up this tree, they
the
kind of
family
create
tree.
the family tree.
Yeah.
So it's like you get a Nama woman, and then you have a German man, and so then you get to see all these roots now.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and so then it's fascinating. That kind of just inspired me.
Yeah.
And then after we had that conversation, I asked myself who, or rather, any person that has had any influence, or rather a fashion statement that is not intentional, but he's just the epitome of what I would say style.
Yeah.
And we look at money every day. I mean, I look at my $10, my $100, and he's there, so with his fabulous hat.
Yes.
So then I'm just like, okay, I think this is saying something to me.
Correct.
I mean, it's everyday stuff that we're surrounded by, but you never know where the opportunity will present itself. And so then I just decided, I think, for me, this is
brilliant way of preserving for her history in a contemporary practice, you know.
Yeah.
Ms. Laimi, what would you say is your interpretation of ties that bind us together in fashion?
I was just thinking about the culture.
Yeah.
We are all doing things which are inspired by our background. Yeah.
What is your background? Maybe just speak a bit louder. What is the background?
Yeah.
And your culture. Which culture are you talking to?
Shwamba culture, specifically Okanyama.
Yes.
I raised up by my grandmother, who was a basket weaver, a clay pot maker. And when I look at the basket now, they are starting fading. People are now just using plates, plastics, ceramics.
Yes.
So I decided to use basket as my inspirations. Even though basket was used as a cultural practice, me, I want to use it as an interior decor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to remember what my grandmother taught me, because she was more serious about cultural things.
So it's for you. It very much has to do with knowledge that is passed down generationally, and you recreating this is a way of preserving that knowledge. But then now you are translating it. It's also applicable to aesthetic value. You're gonna put it as interior decor, for example. So it's left basically to who purchases your work, how they wish to use it. Then at the end of the day, I mean, I know, like, I come from Bushman culture, and there, I mean, we wove mats together. I mean, they refer to as mats, you know, not carpets. And the mats are wove together. It's mobile enough. You carry it with you. When you need to rest, you lay that down. That's your bed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now that if you've got the one of your works, if you've got it as a mat, you can use it for any other purpose. Alternatively, you could actually have it hang on the wall. One of your pieces that you have submitted or that is on show is not complete. Do you want to talk a bit about why you've left it in that form?
I left it like that because people are saying my things are very, very flat.
Yes.
So they want me to be different.
Yes.
I let it to be like that for it to be giving me different breath.
Yes,
Yeah.
I hear you. Also, I think it's helpful for us that don't know how you get to the finished product to see what that process is that it even entails, because now seeing it kind of midway is like, wow, and then there is the final work. Oh, okay. So it helps us also understand the entire, and that it's a fun process and probably very therapeutic doing that weaving, you know what I mean, as part of creating the work. Does it help you, like with anything else, coping in life when you are sitting and it takes you to a different place? Does it do anything like that?
Yeah, it helped me a lot. Like, my mind was not on the place.
Yeah.
I was disappointed by UNM. I was supposed to be graduated.
Yes.
But It was very stressed, but when I
Yes.
sit and make my weaving,
Yes.
my life become calm.
That's
So
it.
it's like
Therapeutic.
It is. So
Wow.
in that sense, it also does add value to people in a different manner. So if
Yeah.
people want to acquire the skills, because you're interested in the generational pass down, if others also want to learn how to create, you'd obviously be able to do it and teach them, and then that can help them in art therapy, for example.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, and it's something that we needed to do.
Yeah,
Because a
yes.
lot of people deal with so many things and they just keep it bottled up. And so that can actually be a way of not only creating this sort of community, but to also address and eradicate some of these things that take us to dark places.
Yes, as a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
Oh, and now when we are moving amidst the pandemics, etc., people need to find other ways of outlets, you know.
Yeah.
So that would obviously be a way that people can engage in helping themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Miss- Yeah, so cool. Miss Betty, do you want to talk to us about what you presented, why you presented that, and how you see that as fashion, as ties that bind us together?
Firstly, I would say we are binded basically by the objects. I feel like the objects and materials around us,
Yeah.
in our different cultures, like, okay, what we find around us, like, let's say, I don't know what example could I give.
Yeah.
The calabash, for example.
The headdress.
The headdress.
Yes.
Yeah, depending which part you are looking at, it can be even recycled material, recycled materials that we find around us. And for this installation,
Yeah.
the title of the installation is Omukupwa. This was
Could you just say that again?
Omukupwa.
Omukupwa? Did I say it
Yes,
correctly?
yes. So, which would basically be like the bride.
Yes.
The bride in Herero, in my tribe. So, this was one of my outfits.
Yeah.
This was a Saturday outfit, the
Yeah.
morning outfit before you wear the white dress.
Yes.
Yeah, so this was a theme dress per se. So the bridesmaids had the same colors, but just a different design
Yeah.
that they wear. And they wear this going to what we call the traditional dress orunde.
Orunde.
Orunde. So this is where they form a circle, and then there will be should I say singing,
Yes.
and dancing. Normally the older ladies will be dancing, singing, clapping. So then the bride works through the circle and then all the way back
Yeah.
to the house,
Yeah.
to her room where she is.
Is
So-
that symbolic of something? Does it mean something in particular? That movement, though, they are singing and then she's moved back to the room.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of meanings. There are quite a lot of meanings.
Yes.
Yeah, there are symbolism. There are quite a lot. Not familiar with all of them, but
Okay.
yeah, there are quite a lot.
You've also shown, as part of the installation, the older headdress, which was pre-colonial era, and the new one. Do you want to talk about that and why you've decided to put them in the same space?
To me, when I create my garments, or the
Yeah.
hero dress in particular, I find that the headgear is what makes a big difference.
Yes.
It defines the era or the time within which the garment was created.
Yes.
For example, if you take a hero dress and you just take off the headgear, it will just be a normal dress.
Yeah.
Especially these modern ones that we create, it will just look like any other modern evening dress. But if you put on the headgear, that's what differentiates that. Then it becomes like a hero dress. So yeah, I'm kind of exploring with I'm trying to come up with, let's say, with a certain style
Yeah.
that describes the old,
Mhm.
what used to be worn. Like, for example, going back to the headgear with the three shapes.
Yeah.
The beaded one.
Yeah.
Ekori, yes.
The
Which we
ekori.
also call ekori or shikaiva in
Oh.
Herero, or shikaiva.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was trying to like look at what was worn then, what is worn in another era, and then what is worn now,
Now.
for example. So I'm trying to come up with something that unifies everything. That
Correct.
yes, that so a
That
certain
becomes a new
style.
voice.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Because I feel with what we are creating now, we have lost the meaning. We need to go back and see how we can bring this, because it's just, if you see hero dress nowadays, I think it has lost its purpose. Like, for example, one of the things, the style that it normally used to be a hero dress, you're not supposed to show your elbows, you're not supposed to show your chest, but what we wear nowadays is quite different. So I was just basically looking in that, the Victorian era, the olden dress, and seeing how I can incorporate it into a new, fresh and exciting dress. So something, a different perspective.
Yes. And now perspective.
Yeah, and now perspective.
I also think the one thing that has stood out for me, especially when I saw the works, is not only that these ties are not just your lineage ties, but that these ties are also the colonial ties, and that most of all of your works are informed by the colonial impressions that were kind of brought onto your practices, you know. I mean, we have Hendrik Witbooi, who was very dominant in the fight for independence. Then we have the beadwork, which is symbolic to what stages you are as a girl, how you are initiated, but that those things, I mean, there was a lot said about civilization that we didn't have it, but it existed. It's just that it wasn't written down, you know, and so that those types of voices kind of need to come to the fore again, and I think that immediately identifies with that. Now I want you guys to freely just go into how these, I mean, the Victorian era, I mean, when you speak of the Hendrik Witbooi and then you speak of the Victorian era dresses, I mean, and the fact that you work with what you have. I mean, the Nama dresses, when they were made, for my culture, like, it's the leftovers that you got from the madam, you know, that you had to use, hence the patch that came about, because now you have this piece of cloth that you can literally patch the work with, or the man is working outside and it's felt spoon, you know, and that he has to now, the feet, they use the leather that's left over, basically to just create sandals, so that they're not hurt by working in this labor-intensive environment, you know. So I think looking at all of that and how those influences, where they are now, and how they've influenced your works, and what you are actually hoping moving forward, what are these new narratives that kind of need to come to the fore? How each person, and this is what my question would be, how would you envision each person identifying themselves now, coming out of a place, they're not fighting for independence anymore. They are in a space where they can be informed by the contemporary cultures and the Western culture. But how do we re-identify ourselves and make sure that we don't lose the indigenous knowledge? And how do we perpetuate that continuously moving forward, passing on, looking at it with the generational knowledge that needs to be passed down? Just your views, what your thinking are, please.
I think what we've done is similar to what the question you're asking, because we have to look at what is the consumer into right now and add that area, our cultural reference to it. I just wanted to add on to what you were saying with the Victorian era, that yesterday when we were setting up, I realized, yes, our silhouettes are all very from Eurocentric, say that, but from different eras. And then it reminded me that, like, for example, the Oshiwambo jewelry now, the original one, it somehow lost its value or started fading because of the influence of the missionary, where if you wanted to become a Christian, you could not wear it. So that is where slowly, the practices, because like you said, if you are a girl is translating into womanhood, she would wear a completely different jewelry and a hairdo. But when the church came in, they said no, they have to stop. So now people wear it just for the sake of, but there's not that attachment is no longer there. So I think the one way to bring it back is look at what is it that we are into now, and then try to
insert those narratives back into the objects. There's one quote that I love by what is his name? It's one of my favorite quotes. It basically says, we look through objects to see what they tell about time, history, society, but mostly what they say about us. And that is very much what you are talking about.
I would say it's like taking a part of each, like looking back, like for my work, like going way back in time and taking apart from like what our parents used to wear, the colonial dress that was brought by the missionary, now like taking all of that and just putting it like in one bowl and creating a garment or an art piece or whatever out of that. So like forming a new identity.
It is, and it is decolonizing the existing identity also, and so that you can have this new narrative that kind of comes to the fore.
Yes.
What I like with Lively, because yes, I'm also part of the visual art department of GNAM, and I always wonder when we talk about decolonizing. I said, let's be honest, the children who are brought up, let's say, in rural settings, they are not exposed to techniques like painting, printing, etc.
Yes.
Yeah? But they are exposed to techniques such as the basket weaving, for example, wood carving and all that. So if we're going to talk about decolonizing, take the cultural,
objects and those skills,
and then use it like how Laimi said. No, she's gonna use what she was taught by her grandmother to make textile art, because that is in the field in which she could have taken other direction, but she's using that. Which now she's creating interesting objects.
And that is so cool, because she could have chosen to go with a Western technique, because that's what we all taught at the UNAM, you know. But the fact that she chose to stick with what was instilled in her, and that she still carries that, and continuously that she will keep showcasing that over and over, you know. And now it even has other value added to it, because it adds to other areas of our lives, well-being, for example, you know.
Interior product. We are very much into that now. So, yeah.
Oh my word, this is so cool. I would just have one last final question. If you had to tell somebody that is listening now, I mean, what value is there in what we were taught before? Because I mean, one looks at society now, and I know when you sit down with your mother, even if she's just teaching you how to cook something, you know, cooking that something, there's lessons being taught in that process. You know what I mean? Which I think we miss now with the now generation. And I know, like, I mean, you are part of a different culture also now, that you have to learn those cultures' meanings, you know, and what they mean, so that you can pass those on also to your little one, you know, for example. I always feel like, even with my daughter, there's stuff that I don't want her to forget. And I feel like even if we are showcasing a show like printmaking, you have to show printmaking in the historic, but there is contemporary makers and the subjects that they cover that are so new and fresh and colorful, you know, so that she still has the appeal for the interest for it should remain. But we shouldn't forget that this is actually where it started, and it came with these important values. Like, how do you think one can actually go about trying to teach those, whether it's I don't know, whether it's through teaching itself, whether it's through workshopping, how can we keep conveying these messages so that they don't just get lost? I mean, I'm keen, my practice is very much writing about them, because if we don't write about our own stories and our own stuff, then that's where the existing literature is only that which has been written that time, so that we have this current discourse kind of added to the pedagogy, you know, that it can move forward, teaching forward. What are your views on that?
I think workshops are a definite way to go, because that's a form of engaging. And I think it's important for us to really share, because even without knowing what each and every person's idea is, and it's like, now that the work has been presented, you can see
the common thread.
Common thread. You see a thread. And so what I remember talking to Ms. Loini about, and what my passion has always been about, is creating a utopia where we can all coexist. All the cultures can embrace each other, and really just take from this and that and that. And so the minute that you have workshops that are able to have people interact, share ideas, and, you know, brainstorm about stuff, and it's not just I'm giving a workshop, it's like you do this technique, I want to learn from you as well. I want to know what you're about. I want to know what drives you, what gets you hungry, like what's your inspiration, where do you feed off, like those are the types of stuff that we need to really engage in, because unfortunately a lot of people tend to work in isolation, and I've actually enjoyed the process of working with different people on projects, because it actually builds my understanding even more, and
the respect for cultures and tolerance also for others.
And it can come from the smallest thing. It can come from even the smallest person you don't know, because it's in everything, and it's in everyday life and practice that we actually are able to get inspiration and create and be artists or be designers and be great at what we do or true to who we are. And so I think that's the direction that I think would
Thank
work.
you so much.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
I honestly, I commend you, ladies. I think, if you still have anything you want to say, please feel free to say that. But I just want to commend you for advocating for who we are, so that we don't forget who we are. As much as we are influenced so much by different things, and things have somehow changed us. And I hope that whoever's listening somehow has something that they can take away for themselves.
I would say, touching on that, like, I think we have lost, particularly for the hero dress, like we have lost the true meaning of the dress. Like we have to remember that what you wear represents you. Like it is like the person respects you for what you wear. Like the current way the dress is being designed, I'm sure you've seen. You've seen like. Yeah. You would see like the. It's a lot more than that. It's showing a lot.
It's something that's very important, and it gets you emotional to talk about how people misinterpret something that is very sacred to you. So probably you can then be that advocate that can still be standing for what the tradition is. It can evolve into the future, but it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be like it has lost. Yes. Yeah.
So maybe that is something that you need to keep on advocating for, because who knows, there are maybe 10 people who are with you and 10 people who are willing to push that agenda as well. So then you might as well just keep on creating, keep on inspiring other people, because then it's only from what people see that they're able to react on something.
Thank you. I was going to say, I would like to see indigenous knowledge being discussed in the education, part of the education system. Because right now we're living in this urban city. Like for me, I was not brought up in the north. So it's because I became curious, but so they really understand, and that's how my research started. But now, what about other children? So I think we need to bring that element in as well.
The one thing that I see definitely as a positive is that, the tertiary institutions have privilege where they can actually reinterpret the curricula, so that the curricula can somehow integrate these knowledge, the indigenous knowledge systems, into the works and how it's translated into the students and in what they create, with respect to obviously the different techniques and tools that will be used. But also there's we look forward to the fashion museum, so that can also be a space where, we don't have a design museum, which would also be a place where one then actually can translate the ideas that are translated into the objects, or that inhabit the objects into, like literature, and that it can be translated into vocal. People can just speak about the object, making reference to those elements that represent them. Like, you don't like the fact that the dress is so bare anymore, but obviously we feel like, yes, it's how a woman adorns herself and how she covers herself. Why do we have the shawls, the chalice, it's that covering, it's that you're a lady, you're a madam, and that there's a different way that you behave when you are like that, as opposed to when you are actually showing a lot of skin, for example. So it's those values that you want to have translated, and that the more we speak about it, and I think the more we vocalize them and we write them down, so that they don't somehow get lost, and we are making sure that even on the World Wide Web, that information remains, that it keeps being fed and circulated. If someone Googles Hero and Trace, I hope they find what you have said today. You know what I mean? Yes, I really hope that because there's an element of respect that goes with that. It's a way you carry yourself.
It's not just the dress.
It's not just the dress. It's not just the object. The objects inhabit stories, and these stories we need to keep bringing to the fore. So we don't forget them. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the showcase. And we will look forward to you making your way to the National Art Gallery in the Pashuka multipurpose area, where you can engage with the works that they have presented. And I hope that what they were able to share today teaches you a little bit about our cultures and how they do bind us together, and what relationships exist within us, within cultures, but also within the lineages we come from. Thank you so much.